Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of USA Global TV and Radio. The content presented is for informational purposes only and is intended to foster open discussion and debate. Viewer discretion is advised. USA Global TV and Radio does not endorse any particular viewpoint and encourages viewers to seek out additional information and perspectives.
Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Welcome to Saving America. This is your host, Dr. David D. SCHEIN. I want to emphasize that I'm a commentator, not a reporter. These are my observations about happenings around the U.S. and the world. The SAVE Act, time to pass it. Democrats have revealed their stripes in grotesque fashion by opposing a bill that requires proof of citizenship and use of ID to vote. As I said, this is a 90-10 issue in our society. While it did pass the House, the future in the Senate looks bleak. That is, unless the GOP dumps the infamous filibuster. The Dems shut down part of the government for the third time in 6 months over nothing. This is pure posturing. The ironic part of the story is that ICE operations have a special budget. So while DHS is closed down, endangering critical services across America, including TSA and airports and FEMA for disasters, ICE can continue. At least I hear that the two sides are talking. I do get asked by some of my audience about what some consider to be my harsh view of Democrats. Well, for starters, this is not your grandparents' Dem party. In fact, it's not your parents' Democrat Party. As a little kid, I lived near Boston. I remember the excitement when John F. Kennedy was elected president. I recall vividly the day of the assassination and the days of nationwide mourning. Nobody said we can't mourn him since he's a Democrat. A number of observers note that in today's society, he would be a middle-of-the-road GOP member, not a Dem. The current Dem party is catering to about 10% of the population, largely people who view themselves as socialists. If you're still voting for the Dems out of habit, you need to review what each candidate really stands for. I believe America is in trouble and is the fault of both political parties, not just the Dems. The challenge is that there is not a legitimate nationwide third or fourth party to support. In fact, I have predicted that America will eventually move to a multi-party system. Yep, in fact, the extremism of the current Dem leadership may drive the majority of current Dems to seek a new party affiliation. If they do not move to the GOP, perhaps there will be a new party closer to their interests. Surprising new January jobs report. Okay, I'm confused. In our last episode, I reported the numbers that have been reported by ADP for the private sector and that the U.S. only added 22,000 new private sector jobs last month. It would have been worse had healthcare and education not chipped in to balance things out just a little bit. Now, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reports a decent gain of 130,000 new jobs. This featured job gains in healthcare, social assistance, and construction, while the federal government and financial activities lost jobs. Who's right? Well, I can tell you that the feds and especially the president are running with the BLS numbers. Only time will tell where things are heading. An encouraging sign is that the unemployment rate dropped to 4.3%, although this also reflects many people leaving the labor market due to lack of opportunity. Wage gains outstripped the modest inflation rate of 2.4%, so that by itself is a positive number. The reduced cost of fuel and housing is helping to moderate price increases. January home sales were down about 8%, which reflects limited housing supply, current mortgage rates over 6%, and while home prices are down, they are still much higher than in the years past. The supply is frustrated by high costs for construction materials and labor, ridiculous county and city administrative fees, and high real estate taxes and insurance. On the darker side, which may help to explain GOP losses late last year, job creation last year was downgraded from 584,000 to 181,000 for the whole year. This is a miserable performance. I note that I predicted that there would be at least a minor recession in 2025, regardless of who is elected president. While the economists did not hit their numbers to call it an official recession, the facts are slow job growth does reflect a slow economy. Dismal report on America's public schools. A new report by the Reason Foundation, which describes itself as a libertarian think tank, provides a lot of food for thought for taxpayers and especially parents. I want to start by saying that I strongly support public K through 12 education. However, despite my own kids going to public school for most of their developmental years, I see some of my grandchildren moving away from that model. I believe that public education for K-12 is the root to success of a society. We cannot put everyone in private schools. Parents do not have the money or the access to do so. However, the race to wokeness, largely driven by socialist teachers unions, has driven many parents to seek alternatives. Incredibly, Texas just passed a bill providing access for families to get financial help to go to private schools. What does the Reason Foundation report say? Something we all know, the taxpayers are paying a ton of money and getting less for it. In New York, it is spending just under $37,000 per student. In California, it is spending just under $26,000 per student. Overall, nationwide inflation-adjusted public school costs grew from $12,852 per student in 2002 to $16,065 per student in 2020. Where is the money going? Sadly, not teachers and better classrooms, but to something called staffing. Report after report shows eighth graders who are not nearly at grade in reading and math. How can so much money buy so little? For starters, there are dramatically fewer kids in our public schools. Enrollment is down by over 1.2 million students compared with pre-pandemic levels, including losses exceeding 5% in New York, Oregon, and Mississippi. And again, despite this, costs to the taxpayers continue to surge. No shocker here, continuing to spend more money has not translated into any improvement in student outcomes. Time has come to get things on track for our students and in turn our society. One, increased parental involvement. Parents were being arrested at school board meetings during the Biden-Harris administration. Fortunately, that stopped at the federal level, but we must encourage full participation. Two, parents need to be visible in their schools. Attend parent-teacher conferences, work with your kids, etc. Three, start focusing on teachers, not useless staff expansion. Four, rein in the teachers' unions. In Texas, they cannot strike. I would make public teacher unions unable to strike across America. Note that federal employee unions cannot strike. Five, focus on the 3 R's across the country. 6, return to discipline and respect for teachers. Speaking as a college professor, I won't teach college courses for first through third year students. Why? I found the students poorly prepared for college work, undisciplined and rude. Usually they figured it out by the time they hit senior year. Students need to understand the importance of education and discipline in K through 12. Don't be fooled about what you hear about AI. We all need to be educated enough to use that tool, not create junk. In the early days of computers, we would say GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. That still applies today. I regard education as just as critical to winning the current Cold War as military preparedness. They go hand in hand. I'm sure most Americans and most likely informed people around the world are aware of the kidnapping of Nancy Guthrie, 84-year-old mother of Today host Savannah Guthrie. Rarely do we see in real life the pathos that this family is experiencing. I convey my support to their entire family, as I'm sure many of my audience members do as well. One of the places to protect are our schools. So the alarming reports of a shooting in a school touches a special place in our hearts, regardless of location. This time it was in the far north section of British Columbia in Canada. There, an 18-year-old biological male killed his mother and stepbrother and then went and killed 6 others and wounded 25 others in a small school that covered grades 7 through 12 in a rural village before taking his own life. The reports are that he had serious mental issues and was a trans female at the time of these horrible acts. I do not consider the trans issue to be the headline of the story, but I do express my concern that our society is not doing enough to provide effective mental treatment options, especially for our teens. There has to be a better way. And lest the focus stray, more killings by Islamic terrorists in Nigeria, who reportedly killed at least 160 people in Muslim villages of Woro and Nuku. While we've been covering the slaughter of Christians, it is important to note that moderate Muslims are also the target of these terrorists. No matter the gender and the nationality, the kidnapping or murder of any person is a crime against humanity. We must find a way toward peace in this world.
All rise.
Our series of interviews for Saving America establishes that the world is full of interesting people. And we welcome Mary Elizabeth Jackson, author, writer, educator, podcaster, and advocate for special needs children. She has so many things in her background that I had to cut it to the bone to save time for this interview. Mary Elizabeth Jackson is a 5-time #1 on Amazon best-selling author. In collaborative anthologies, she has Women with Healing Gifts, Glimpses into the World of Autism, The Fearless Entrepreneurs. #4, an international bestseller, Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore, August of 2021, and she has The Book I Read, March of 2022. Jackson is also the 2017 Gold Maxi Award-winning author of the children's book, Perfectly Precious Pulicious. Jackson has recently released her Inspired Kids series with book 1, Perfectly Me. She lives with her hubby, 3 kids, and a dog in Nashville. We welcome her for her first appearance on Saving America.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, David. It's just so nice to be here. I'm so excited about it. And I'm so glad we got to meet because I think you're really fascinating too. And everybody has a story, don't they?
It's amazing. And you've got multiple stories. And as you know, what we do on Saving America is we ask 3 questions. So the first one is, tell us about being a certified special needs advocate and an ambassador advocate for Autism Tennessee. It says Autism TN, and I'm assuming that's Autism Tennessee.
Yes, it is. Actually, it's a nonprofit that's here in Nashville, and it is the only nonprofit that's specifically geared toward autism, families raising individuals with autism or who have, somebody in the family that has autism. And I would say it's a very exciting time right now because I'm working on some very exciting projects, and some were kind of like, oh, I hope that happens, and now it is, And I've been parenting for over 24 years. I have 3 children. 2 of my children are on the spectrum, so that is how I became an advocate, and first started out as an advocate parent. And along my journey, my middle daughter, when she was 5, experienced an incredible trauma in school, and it kind of changed my direction as an advocate. And I started to, I chose to go the path of trying to change law in the state that I live in. And that took me down a very different road. And then when my third child, my son, late in life, and he was born with his own set of challenges, that's how I became an author. And, it's been very interesting, I think, and something I really wanted to do is to be able to intertwine everything. So for being an ambassador advocate with Autism Tennessee, I go out into the public and do events and education. And right now we are launching our Building Bridges program. I have people I'm training tomorrow. So we go into schools, daycares, preschools, corporations, and train individuals on early signs and symptoms of autism and what to do, how to help. And because it's 1 in 36 kids now that's being diagnosed with autism, the rate is going up and up. more and more people are being diagnosed, we need this education and awareness out there. So I'm really excited to be a part of this program, and we really can teach it across the country if anyone's interested, because we are going to be taking it to video as well. I'll be a part of launching that, and then also working with some grants to be able to put some sensory rooms and make businesses and libraries and museums and all kinds of places have be more sensory friendly. And so we're working on a project with the Nashville Airport right now. So I'm very excited about this. This is good stuff.
Well, especially we're hearing so much about it today. Just to tie it to me, believe it or not, in the last hour, I have spoken with a graduate student at my university who is on the spectrum. He has worked with me over a fairly long period of time because I was advisor when he got his first graduate degree, and he's back getting another graduate degree. And we had a registration issue, so I was working with him on that. So I'm used to adjusting to it in the classroom, even at a graduate level. It's interesting. I have one of my grandchildren who has been diagnosed as on the spectrum, though it seems to be fairly modest. So this is something that seems to be impacting, first of all, as teachers were impacted, but also certainly as parents and grandparents. So it's something that's, part of the reality of life. And I'm glad people are adjusting to it and taking action to make it more accommodating for people that are experiencing these challenges. Well, let me ask you a question too, with our limited time here. With 5 #1 books on Amazon, let's explore your approach and some advice for members of our audience who want to write a successful book themselves.
Well, that's a loaded question.
Yes.
So I would say you need to be prepared. If you really want to be an author, be prepared for a lot of work. And, unless you're already famous or have a lot of money to pour into it, you are going to do a lot of work and it'll take time. So you need to look at a long haul, like, okay, I want to go in and I'm going to do this for 5 years. It takes about 5+ years, maybe almost closer to 10, to become a very successful author. I was first published in 2017, and it took a while. Even if you get a publishing contract with a very large publishing company, they these days are going to expect you to do a lot of marketing and PR work yourself. So it's not about publishing and I'm going to sit and wait for the checks to come in. I would say if you want to write, you need to write, and don't wait for that, like cabin in the woods or, cottage on the beach. I've learned to write in car rider lines and practices and rehearsals and games. And, when I have 20 minutes here and there, I've learned how to write that at those times. But it's a passion of mine. So I think writing is a passion project. And, if you are stuck or want to write and you don't know what to do, then talk to somebody who's already published. Do some research, look for someone that you could talk to, a coach or something that would help you. And you got to believe in what you're writing, because your book is going to be an extension of you. It's like your business card. And so, you got to cheer it on, and say, and I know for some of us, it's really hard to talk about ourselves. But for me, it was like, I took myself out of that because that was difficult, but talking about my book was so much easier, so you have to take every opportunity you can to promote. I mean, and kind of shamelessly, right, David?
Well, I understand that I'm just a little bit behind you. My first book came out 2018 and the second one 2022. And sadly, my current book, which is not in the same series, it's a very different book than the first two. I'm very delayed. I've written the first 12, 14 chapters of about a 70-chapter book. And of course, even that is interesting to me as somebody who's read hundreds and hundreds of books over my career, is that we're used to having a book with 12 or 15 chapters, and now books have many more chapters, and they're just shorter, 1,500 words a chapter, and I'm kind of used to 3,000 word chapters. So it's just a very interesting how even the publishing business, on my second book, we've sold more Kindles than we have hard copies. And growing up, I would never have anticipated, gee, if I'm an author, most of my work is electronic.
It's interesting, isn't it? The whole platform. I mean, you were published in 2018. I was published in 2017, and the entire landscape has changed.
Mhm.
The pandemic changed everything for us, for creatives, period, in all kinds of businesses. And so now we are having to learn how to do things differently in order to survive what's going on. And so, you know, electronic sales aren't bad, right? I mean, however we get a book in somebody's hand,
Absolutely, and get a chance to talk about it. And
Right.
our third question today is, can you share with our audience what they can expect when they listen to Writer's Corner Live and Cover to Cover, two of your active series online?
Well, okay, so Writers Corner Live was launched in 2018, so it's been 6 years, and we interview authors from all over the globe, anywhere from New York Times to indie sensations, and we're every Tuesday at 10:30, or well, right now it's 11:30 because the time changed, so 11:30 Eastern. Central Time, sorry. And we are online with that. It is live. So we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, that kind of thing. And then Cover to Cover is a separate show that I have myself, because the other one I do with a friend of mine. She lives actually in Cape Town, South Africa. So isn't that cool? We're on
Yes.
totally different continents, and we've never met, but we've been working together for 6 years and just really love doing it together. We have a great time. And Cover to Cover was born out of my daughters are music artists, and I am their manager, momager, we'll call it. That's what my girls call me. And so I had contacted a PR company about, they were doing magazine reviews they do them for music artists and authors. And so they were working on some reviews for me. And the owner said, I was looking over your website, and I want a book podcast for my PR company. And would you do it? I was like, So it took me about 6 months to decide, because I was like, how am I going to do this different? What do I do? But anyways, now I'm on Brushwood Media Network. I have over 340,000 listeners globally. I'm so excited about that. And when you tune in Saturdays and Sundays, 12 to 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I focus on the backstories a lot of times of the authors. Being an author myself, I like to dive into what is behind the story, what is the life journey of the person who's written these books. And they're New York Times bestsellers, they're Today bestsellers, they're debut authors. Sometimes they're just inspirational stories, and sometimes I focus more on things like people who write for the disability world, and anything that is resources, tools, and helpful to those of us out there in the world who are looking for answers. And so it's kind of cover to cover, it can cover all kinds of things, but I'm really enjoying it. And I have just met some of the most amazing people, like the former CEO of Procter and Gamble, and, somebody that, well, I told you who I interviewed yesterday. Like, he's the leading specialist in the world for, crop circles. I mean, whoever thought I'd meet this gentleman, and he's a famous artist, Freddie Silva, and wonderful gentleman. I mean, he's just made it. It's just amazing, all the people that we get to meet and interview, and it makes it a real honor, and a blessing.
It sounds like a lot of fun. And of course, we got interviewed together
Yes.
some months ago, which is how we got introduced in the first place. And it's been
That's
my
right.
pleasure to get connected with you. And it is an interesting journey. And as I said, there are so many interesting people in the world. And I think one of the things that we do is to help people in their cars or looking for something, or maybe even sitting at the beach, and to say, gosh, I didn't know anything about crop circles. And now I know everything that I ever needed to know about them. And
Well,
I actually know what crop circles are, which I find fascinating. And I'm one of those crazy people who likes the Carnac stones in France and Stonehenge and
Oh,
this
yes, and he is.
Terebray.
Yes, and he's done like 16 documentaries on all of that, and he's had all these meetings like with NASA, and so all this science and the past and our history are coming together, and it was so fascinating yesterday, and it's a real blessing to be able to share that with others. Because like you said, we never know out there who might just need to hear something that someone says, and it may change everything for them, and it may just make them smile. It may make them feel like, okay, I can get through today. Today I can be okay.
I think that's a very valuable concept and one that we can certainly subscribe to. Mary Elizabeth Jackson, it is so much fun to talk with you again and to share you with our audience. Can you tell our audience about how they can get more information on you?
Absolutely. And Dr. David, thank you for having me. And yes, it's been such a pleasure getting to meet you and getting to interview you as well. And so you can find me at www.maryejackson.com. And I am on social media, Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and TikTok. I go over there and do a lot of author little minute snippets about the behind the scenes. But my name, Mary Elizabeth Jackson, is pretty much where you can find me social media wise. And all my books, you can find my books on my website. You can find my shows. I have an inspired kid series that was, inspired by my son who came in with challenges. And my goal as a writer, I have a middle grade reader coming out, but my goal as a writer is to empower kids and to help them to know however they came into this world, they are okay. So
Absolutely. And as a grandparent, I could tell you that we're out getting books for the 7 grandchildren and making sure that they feel connected to the world. So you're doing something very valuable.
Please proceed.
Wendy's to close hundreds of locations. It seems that every week lately I have reports on well-known companies closing locations. I recently mentioned Kroger, for instance. And lo and behold, a modest Kroger not far from our CMG offices just closed down. Joining the trend, Wendy's will be closing hundreds of locations. It also announced it will refocus on value meal sales in response to weak fourth quarter 2025 sales results. There will still be plenty of locations as it has about 6,000 locations. Fast food chains have been hit by compression as food and labor costs have surged, causing them to increase their prices, coming closer to the fast casual chains and giving people more incentive to eat at home. I know many of the supermarkets here in Houston have a wide range of ready-to-eat meal boxes in the front of the stores these days. Just pop them in the microwave and keep rolling.
How does the defendant plead?
Can Western culture survive? My news feeds have multiple articles weekly on horrible things happening, especially to young girls in England, France, and Germany. Often there is no punishment or little punishment for rapists and so-called groomers. The perps are uniformly from a specific batch of countries and have flooded into these European countries. I'm not sure the motivation, other that some in political control felt it was their liberal obligation to take them. This was despite the fact that these new immigrants had no desire to assimilate into their new Western countries. A classic example this week was a man from Pakistan who raped a 13-year-old girl. His wife reportedly said he simply did not know this was illegal in England. Hey, this is simple. Deport his family now, imprison the perp for a long time, and then deport him the moment he steps out of that long prison term. Enough is enough. I am frankly shocked that these developed civilizations are allowing this chaos to continue. I do know that those who speak up in the UK, like I am doing in this report, are being jailed and persecuted for speaking the truth. I have the UK on my do not travel list until sanity returns. On the positive side, Sweden has recently announced some changes. Starting in June, you cannot become a citizen in Sweden unless you can speak Swedish. The conservative government there is going to increase the focus on new migrants wanting to become part of Swedish society. The migrants will have to be self-supporting and be good citizens for 8 years, not the current 5 years. Sweden's conservative government replaced the leftist government that oversaw a flood of migrants, which leads to increased crime and social problems. Perhaps we will see something similar across some of the other European countries, as I hope the majority of the populations of countries will rise up and start voting the right way.
Please raise your right hand.
GLP-1 drugs blamed for possible scurvy problems. My wonderful audience members, I cannot make this up. Much of the developed world's population is dealing with obesity. It is predicted that in the USA that 1/3 of us will develop type 2 diabetes, absent some big changes. Then along came GLP-1 drugs. While they were expensive to start, given recent developments, the prices seem to be coming down. Also, originally administered by injection, pill forms are now coming out. Along comes a research study out of Australia that claims that GLP-1s may contribute to scurvy. Okay, so what's scurvy? Well, your host remembers from my high school courses that sailors in the 17th century on those early voyages around the world developed it due to lack of certain vitamins, especially vitamin C. That definition is still true today. Signs of it include tooth loss in severe cases, fatigue, and some skin abnormalities. The research report indicated that due to GLP-1 being so effective at reducing appetites, the patients are eating much less. This may in turn lead to the patients not taking enough vitamin C and other minerals. On my end, this would seem to be just a big sign that you're taking these drugs. You should be popping vitamin C, which is fairly cheap and readily available dietary supplement.
Objection, Your Honor.
Business students, business persons, or consumers, business law impacts much of what you do. This segment is designed to help you get past the headlines on key stories. An interesting crypto case. In the case of Van Loon versus the Department of Treasury, there are 6 plaintiffs who are users of Tornado Cash, a cryptocurrency mixing service that uses immutable smart contracts to anonymize transactions. Tornado Cash was sanctioned by the Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, for allegedly facilitating money laundering for malicious actors, including North Korea. The 6 plaintiffs argued that OFAC exceeded its statutory authority by designating Tornado Cash as a specially designated national, SDN, and blocking its smart contracts. Yes, folks, typical of federal government, there are that many acronyms in this one paragraph. The United States District Court for the Western District of Texas granted summary judgment in favor of the Department of Treasury, finding that Tornado Cash is an entity that can be sanctioned, that the smart contracts constitute property, and that Tornado Cash has an interest in these smart contracts. The plaintiffs appealed the decision. Interesting twist. United States Court of Appeals to the Fifth Circuit reviewed the case and focused on whether immutable smart contracts could be considered property under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The court concluded that these smart contracts are not property because they are not capable of being owned, controlled, or altered by anyone, even including their creators. The court emphasized that property by definition must be ownable, and the immutable smart contracts do not meet this criterion. Consequently, the court held that the Office of Foreign Assets Control exceeded its statutory authority by sanctioning Tornado Cash's immutable smart contracts. The Fifth Circuit reversed the district court's decision and remanded the case with instructions to grant the plaintiff's motion for partial summary judgment based on the Administrative Procedures Act. The appeals court did not address whether Tornado Cash qualifies as an entity or whether it has an interest in the smart contracts, as the determination that the smart contracts are not property resolved the whole case.
May I remind you, you're still under oath.
Quick determinations may deny many applying for legal immigration status their day in court. This is Dr. David D. SCHEIN for a special Saving America report. While my regular audience knows that I'm a harsh critic of illegal immigration, I believe most know that I'm an equally vigorous advocate for legal immigration. Many developed countries, including the U.S., are not replacing their population. This is leading to a shortage of labor. In fact, many advocates of allowing illegal immigrants to stay in America cite the shortage of labor. We need labor to replace our aging population at work and, in fact, to take care of our aging population. Certainly, we do not need more people coming here for handouts. We have enough of those folks already. We also need highly skilled laborers, which I'll address separately. The first issue is that many people are in the U.S. through legal channels and have followed the rules. While some citizens may express concern regarding how some immigration programs were run, the fact is that many followed whatever rules that were there for the specific situation. Many of these legal immigrants have attorneys and court dates. Here in Houston, a very international city, there are many such immigrants and attorneys helping them. This is what we want, an orderly process to review persons for the serious subject of citizenship. In my opinion, we make the process of obtaining legal status unduly complicated for most. Again, I do want everyone seeking legal status to be properly vetted. However, the process often is entirely cumbersome and may discourage our best prospects from seeking citizenship here. The new Department of Justice interim final rule about how the Board of Immigration Appeals, also known as BIA, hearing process will work, and this is a major game changer. The BIA is the highest administrative appellate body in the U.S. immigration system. By definition, the BIA reviews decisions by lower immigration proceedings around the country. The idea is fairness and consistency. The new rule, which will go into effect in early March 2026, is a major reset. For many with a legitimate appeal, they will face summary dismissal instead of a hearing with the BIA. Here is a quick summary of the new rules. Appeal deadlines reduced from 30 days to 10 days. Even with the most diligent attorney, this could be hard to meet. Summary dismissal will be the normal outcome, not the exception. This means appeals can now be dismissed for technical reasons tied to notice language or formatting, even when the underlying case raises serious legal or factual errors. A reasoned review would then not be available. Full briefing is eliminated in most cases, so formal legal arguments may never get before the BIA for their review. Summary dismissal is a final action. If the BIA summarily dismisses an appeal, then the only option is federal court review, a process that is far more complex. What's the justification? Justification for this action by the Department of Justice is to clear a huge backlog and make things more efficient. This reminds me of my own issues with DOGE. We must trim government, which includes our incredibly inefficient court system. However, there is the hammer approach and the scalpel approach. DOGE was ultimately too sloppy to produce the results the American people need. The BIA reform looks like the same bumbling approach. Who is impacted by this change? I asked my favorite immigration attorney this question. She replied that immigrants in the immigration court proceedings are given an opportunity to defend their removal from the U.S. under certain laws found in the Immigration and Nationality Act. That would include asylum, cancellation of removal, and withholding of removal under the Convention Against Torture. Again, people in this status have already been vetted for any criminal behavior. She highlighted the changes above, especially the presumption of denial of the application and then only 10 days to bring the appeal. However, with about 226,000 cases pending for BIA review, there is no practical way for BIA to complete these in a timely manner with the limited resources available. She volunteered that the chances of success for immigrants at the appeals level went from 10% to 1/100th%. This also raises ethical issues for immigration attorneys in terms of taking cases if the likelihood of timely success is so low. She also mentioned that there is a significant shortage of immigration judges already. My suggestion goes back over a year. There are many retired judges and attorneys who would like to do something on a part-time basis to help their communities. Why not hire them at modest hourly pay without other benefits, give them a crash course in immigration law rules, and give those immigrants who are eligible their review opportunity? My second concern is the sudden crackdown on H-1B visas. The idea of these visas is that we do not have enough highly skilled workers in technology and medical research. So, subject to proof that there are not enough domestic workers in certain areas, employers can hire foreign workers under the H-1B process. Employers are required to prove that they cannot hire enough domestic workers for the same pay and benefits. I agree with the premise of President Trump's crackdown. The process is being abused and foreign workers are being recruited in large numbers and paid lower wages than the available domestic workers. His remedy: implement a $100,000 fee for hiring an H-1B visa employee. However, that's a wrong approach. This is the proverbial throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There are clear rules for the use and enforcement of H-1B visas. I propose that the federal employees charged with the audit responsibilities do their jobs. In a quick review, the thousands of foreign workers serving Silicon Valley tech companies often are not meeting the legitimate H-1B standards, especially with regard to pay. The remedy is to simply enforce the rules. On the other hand, we're not producing sufficient numbers of top research scientists to help America and the world conquer cancer, Alzheimer's, and to meet other urgent needs. The H-1B visa process, administered correctly, can help America to continue to be the leader in such important areas.
Silence in the court.
Who was born and raised in New York by his Jewish father and German mother. After West Point, he served his country both in the Army and the FBI, where he worked in the National Security Branch assigned to foreign counterintelligence. Convinced of an impending collapse of American society due to the increasing negative influence and corrupt collusion of globalist U.S. corporations and globalist U.S. government, David left America in 2010 and moved to China, where he has worked in risk management, advising clients on strategic threat intelligence, as well as conducting security operations, corporate investigations, and due diligence. He has also worked for both Amazon and Boeing, leading their corporate crisis management departments, overseeing all of Asia. He is the founder and CEO of Terenbith Leadership Advisory. Rather incredible, this man has been declared an enemy of the state and is no longer welcome back in the United States. His political ideology centers upon faith, family, and freedom. He is fluent in Mandarin, Chinese, and German. His motto is "Lead to Victory." He is the author of the current book, Patriots Betrayed, a soldier, scholar, and spy's warning about America. And so we welcome Arthur Bomblett for his first appearance on Saving America. Welcome.
Thanks, David. I appreciate the welcome, and hello to all your listeners.
Yes, and boy, you've got, that's, I think, maybe the longest introduction that we've put into the record so far.
Thank you. Thank you.
Put a lot into it. As you know, what we do is we ask 3 questions to give people a chance to give a quick view of what they're involved in. And again, I know what you're involved in is much more complex, but here's question number 1. Tell us why you are not welcome back in the USA with regard to the FBI investigation against you.
Sure. Thank you. So first, I do not know why I'm not welcome back, but I could tell you why, with the experiences that I go through. When I go to America, I am detained, searched, interrogated, deceived, humiliated, and physically assaulted by my own government. I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to go through it really quick. The last time I traveled back to America was August of 2019. It was a plane from Taiwan to Chicago International O'Hare Airport. As soon as I arrived in O'Hare, I was selected for secondary screening. I began to undergo interrogation by what's called Customs and Border Patrol. They wanted to know all about what am I doing in China, what are my contacts. I tried to record the presence with my personal mobile phone. They told me I'm not allowed to do it. I had to surrender all my digital equipment to the Customs Border Patrol, give them my password to unlock the devices. My devices then went into a back room that I was not allowed to accompany them. Then they proceeded to continue to interrogate me, go through all my baggage, piece by piece. I waited over 3 hours until I finally got my digital equipment back. I left the airport thinking that was going to be it. It's not. Once I was in Chicago, and to all my viewers, my reason I was in Chicago is I was about to do a deposition against the Boeing company that I was suing them. I'm on Rumble channel, episode number 2, me and Boeing, check it out. You'll understand what I'm talking about, the collapse of America. But the purpose of the trip to Chicago was to do a deposition against the Boeing company. While I was in Chicago, within about 24 hours, I realized I was under surveillance. not overt surveillance, but covert surveillance. I could just feel it. I ended up going to what's called Grant Park, which is in the city of Chicago. At that time, I saw an individual that was surveilling me, which is a polite word to say he was stalking me, taking pictures of me all covertly. I described this to the audience. Everything that I'm saying here has been submitted to the congressmen and senators. This is all documented. Once I realized I was under surveillance, I ran away from that vicinity about 200 meters inside the park into a dead end. I turned around. The same man is in a full pursuit running after me. Again, I go into the details and more. I won't go in too much now because we're under time. The man ended up, there was a physical altercation where the man physically assaulted me. At that time, I had no doubts in my mind this person was an FBI employee, either an FBI special agent or in the FBI, what we have is surveillance operatives. He was one or the other. And I knew at that time, if I would have physically assaulted this person, I would have been in a lot of trouble. I ended up becoming physically assaulted by this person. I ended up running again away from this person, escaping the maneuver. I never imagined I would be doing this in my own country. Again, to the audience, this is why I'm not welcome. To make a long story short, when it was time for me to leave America, same airport, Chicago O'Hare, I check in, I go through customs, I'm ready to board the plane just like all the other passengers are. As we're lined up to literally board the plane, 2 customs and border agents in full uniform are inspecting all the passports of the people boarding. They see my passport. They tell me to step out of line about 2 to 3 feet. This is the humiliation. All the passengers are seeing what's going on. They end up saying they need to go through all my stuff. I said, where should I put my stuff? They said, just sit on the floor. I'm sitting on the floor, taking off my shoes. They want to go through the soles of my feet, all my baggage, everything, taking pictures of all the telephone numbers or whatnot, all in plain sight of all the passengers. It got so bad that the stewardess who's waiting at the open door of the airplane is motioning to him that, is he going to be arrested? Otherwise, this plane has got to go. The plane's ready to go. They're still searching me. Finally, again, interrogation. To make a long story short, I'm finally allowed to leave. Immediately, the stewardess escorts me to my seat, and we're gone. I'm detained, searched, interrogated, deceived, humiliated, physically assaulted. If that's not welcome, I don't know what it is. I get treated better in foreign countries than my own country. And to all the audience, all our senators and congressmen know about this story, and they've all ignored me. I'd like answers, and I'm sure the American public would like answers.
Well, maybe this interview today, which may be played to a different audience, maybe that'll trigger some of that. Let me ask you question number 2. Describe what you're seeing with regard to the decline of America and its symptoms and causes.
Absolutely. I knew in 2005, America is headed to civil war and collapse. In 2010, I left America. Actions speak louder than words. When you physically leave the country, you know it, you believe it. If I could say one thing to show people what is the litmus test to show why we're declining, I come from a military family that goes all the way back to the Civil War. I have all family members, World War I, World War II. I'm a West Point grad. I grew up with father figures who served in the Vietnam. And if we all remember, in Vietnam, there was something called the draft. So to answer that question very specifically, I want my viewers to answer this question or think about in their mind. If there was a war now in America and we had to do the draft, do you think Americans would raise their hand and volunteer? Me as a military veteran, I would not even consider it enlisting in the military now. And to any of the young Americans, when I was a young boy, if you dodged the draft during Vietnam, I called you a coward. Now, if a draft came and a young American said, hell no, I'm not going to go, I'd say that person's a smart person and his morality's fine. Because when the government has no loyalty to the citizens have no loyalty to the government. So I would just pose that question to the American citizens when they think how strong our country are we, what is the decline? You ask yourselves, if we had a war and we needed to do the draft compared to Vietnam, World War I, World War II, Korea, what did you think is going to happen to the Americans now? Would they raise their hand and say, I will die for this country? Or would they say, hell no, screw you? I think we are going to be in a world of hurt in America.
Wow, something else. Question number 3. What can the average American do about the circumstances you're observing? What is the action plan?
Sure. So I left America and I'm not, even though it is rising, if you do the studies, you're seeing more and more Americans leave America. I'm not advocating that. But what I will say is strength is in numbers. I would say find yourself with like-minded people. We've all heard this Christian flight, white flight, conservative flight, whatever you want to call it. People are leaving blue states, they're going to red states. I would say surround yourself with like-minded people. We all know it. When I was young growing up, if you were a Democrat, I was a Republican, we were in a bar restaurant, we'd argue a little bit, and that's it. We've never seen the amount of political tensions that were going on now. We are going to civil war. I would say number 1 is start reevaluating who is your groups, who are the teams, who is your family, who are the associations that you're belonging to. Start finding like-minded people, even if that means you leave your state or your city and go to another place. I'm not saying you're going to have to leave the country, but I'm saying if it's going to get to civil war or collapse, you want to be surrounded by like-minded people.
Well, I'll say this is a pretty tough situation. I can relate to it. I was actually subject to the draft during the Vietnam War, and I fell into an interesting category because I was in the lottery, and I got a very high lottery number. And actually, while in college, instead of having a 2S deferment, I had a 1Y classification, meant that I was 1A, except they hadn't done a physical on me. It was subject to being drafted. But when I got the notice from the draft board, I call up, my hands are shaking, and I said, what's going on here? I'm about to get drafted. And the lady on the other end of the line at the Philadelphia draft board said, hey, Mr. SCHEIN, she said, your draft number is 232. You have 0 chance of being drafted, because the lowest number was 75 that would be drafted out of Philadelphia. Part of the reason for that is because there were so many volunteers at that time out of a big city like Philadelphia. But it was a pretty interesting situation. And of course, I actually served all of my Y exposure, and then was subject to they told me once you served all that out, you're only subject to draft if you're under 35 and we go to a world war. And of course, by 1975, Nixon had eliminated the draft. But as you know, I came from a military family myself. My dad did 28 and a half years in the Navy. And so I was military dependent during Vietnam. And it was very interesting to be on one of these far liberal WAC campuses as someone who came from a military family. So it's interesting, your observations. And of course, you reached a higher level by both being at West Point, which is a big deal in itself, and then serving in both the Army and the FBI. How can our audience get more information about you and your book?
Sure. Well, one thing I could tell the audience is, sorry about freedoms in America. I've already been shadow banned on YouTube, so not there. So I would say the 2 social platforms are Twitter and Rumble. All you got to do is look up my name, David Baumblett. You'll find me. And then my website, it's called terebinth.info. You could get the book there, audio, ebook. And then there's hard and soft cover books, Amazon and whatnot. But the website, Terebinth, and then Twitter and Rumble, just my name, and you'll find me.
The defense rests, Your Honor.
Tariffs still in the headlines. Trump extended the tariff truce with the Chi-Coms for another 90 days. At this rate, there will be no deal before his term ends. They have no reason to make a deal as long as they are selling stuff to the USA. I call on all consumers to stop buying anything from China if at all possible. Sadly, that is not easy. A prime example, I was in the tourist outlet known as Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. That is in a beautiful area in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. I collect locally made ceramic mugs from places I visit. I went to about a half dozen gift shops in similar places. Tons of mugs, but almost everyone was made in China. A few were made in Thailand. None in the USA. Given what they were charging, I surely think they could have had at least one made locally. Now, tourist mugs won't impact American safety, but pharmaceuticals will. Trump introduced a new tariff on pharmaceuticals. This is not based on balance of payments, but China and even Ireland made the list. These tariffs are on a long timetable, which I believe is deliberate. I strongly support this since our security depends on it. COVID vividly demonstrated our dependence on other countries for important medications as well as computer chips. America must secure its safety through its independence. The tariff phase-in will allow these critical products to be made domestically again. Related to this, I recently heard an incredible statistic. America's military depends on as many as 2,000 parts from China. How can this have happened with the fortune we are spending on defense? Trump has reportedly ordered Secretary of Defense Hegseth to make sure that this situation is rectified and to report by this October. Given the threat to civilization that China presents, this is an unthinkable failure by the Department of Defense under both political parties. This threat is even greater than it might seem, since some of the more sophisticated parts could have spy technology built into them. I regard this as a real crisis. Anybody who thinks that Chi-Coms are not a threat to civilization should note their illegal interference with American citizens to its country. The latest report is from NTD Network, which stated that a 7-year-old boy is being prevented from leaving China since the Chi-Coms don't like what his father has said about China's leadership. Both his parents are American green card holders. Not sure what they were thinking, but apparently the father went back to China with the son and landed in prison. Then the Chi-Coms blocked the son from leaving China. Supposedly this is a 1-year penalty. I suppose they'll try and brainwash the kid during that year. India is also in the spotlight. I thought we would have to deal on tariffs with India right after the EU deal, but not so far. This is one of the two big issues with this populous nation. The other is purchasing Russian oil, which is allowing the murderer Putin to kill more Ukrainians.
Silence in the court.
Violence against ICE agents calls for harsher enforcement actions. In what sounds like third world dangers, ICE agents and other federal officers assisting in immigration enforcement have been targeted in 2 ambushes that took place in Texas recently. The Department of Justice listed 10 individuals charged in relation to the first incident when the suspects opened fire on correctional officers outside the Prairie Land Detention Center in Alvarado, Texas on the 4th of July. Sadly, one officer was shot in the neck, but fortunately will survive. The attack started with fireworks being shot at the facility. When the officers responded, apparently shots were fired. In addition, there was vandalism of official vehicles. A second incident was a man was killed after reportedly opening fire at a U.S. Border Patrol facility in McAllen, Texas, which is near the Mexican border. Ryan Luis Moscada, 27, was fatally shot after federal agents returned fire. He reportedly had an assault rifle and was carrying a utility vest at the time of the incident. Texas is openly supporting ICE's efforts, so these attacks in the state are especially notable. Enough is enough. Some really bad people are being detained by ICE and removed from our society. Anyone encouraging any interference with their efforts, politicians or civilians, must be dealt with harshly and quickly at the federal level.
This session is adjourned.
Thanks for joining me for Saving America. If you have questions or comments, please find me on various social media sites. I'm Dr. David D. SCHEIN, and I will see you next week.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honored to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/usaglobaltv. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.